Angel. Um, you were mentioning the video was in German, so I figured I would give a bit of an English explanation of how to do this build fairly precisely, at least without a mill in the current patch. Because I was messing around with this for a few hours myself, just trying to figure out how to do it right. Because I wanted to experiment a little bit with one lumber camp versus two lumber camps. I tried both for a while, and I think this is the most ideal way to do it now. So essentially, this just starts out. I just made a save state for it from a build I was doing. I put it on explored because it doesn't really matter. The important thing is to get the timings here, and the way this starts before this is fairly straightforward. It's basically everyone on food for it's your first 6 on food, then it's 2 on wood. So only real difference from a normal archer's build in the past is that you go 2 on wood instead of 3 on wood, and you only take the first 2 sheep. After the first 2 sheep, you want to make sure the boar is coming in. So often it's like 6 on food, 1 to wood, 1 boar, 2nd to wood, something like that. You want to push in 2 deer. I push in a third here. I think you should usually push in a third. I mean, you always get at least 3 on Arabia, right? Sometimes you get 4. 4 actually makes this absurdly clean. I end up pushing the third a little bit later, giving time for, in the meantime, over the last 3 minutes, maybe you've been scanning your opponent, have come back, now know where his base is, etc., etc. So you can get it with pushing 2 and then pushing the third a little bit later. You just want to make sure you don't lose your scout. And then at some point here near the end, this is where it starts to get a little bit more improv. I messed around for a while to find what feels like about the right numbers. So half of this is I'm recording it, so I have a feel for what the numbers should be myself when I look back at this in the future. But you'll want to get 2 on gold here. I've tried 1, I tried 3. I think 2 here gives about the perfect amount for the tightest you can get this. With what you want on food, though, you'll want to have as little as possible as you're preparing to click up here. So as we're preparing to click up here, 19 pop, cancel this fill and replace with loom in a second. You want to just start rapidly pulling off of food and trying to transition to wood here. 1 lumber camp, I think, is pretty much the clear option. You can get up around the same time to Castle Age with 2 lumber camps, but it's a hell of a lot tighter. And I found there's just too much idle time here and there. It's also even a tad later. Okay, so we're up. Just having to do a little drop off to make sure we make it, because it is really, really tight. At this point, notice just leaving a little bit on food. 3 on food here, 2 on gold. Everyone else goes to wood for a second. It's okay to take stragglers. These vills can be redistributed to ostriches. I think in theory I probably want 1 or 2 of these vills on wood over here right now, because I do run out of stragglers a little too quickly later down the road, which becomes annoying because then the vills don't have anywhere to go. So maybe a little bit more to wood over here would be a little bit more perfect. We gather res for a minute. And we're still just leaving 6 on food here, because we're going to need the food to get fletching anyway. And to make sure we can sustain villagers. You can see we have 146 food in the bank after queuing a second mill. And 6 on food, you actually slightly go down in food, not up. It's very, very slight. But we need to make sure we have over the number we'll need of food, so that if it goes down, we're okay. 2 ranges immediately, 1 villager on each. This is not a build order where you can get away with having like 4 villagers, so 2 on each of these buildings. This is too tight. So 1 on each building to make sure it's as efficient as possible. We're going to queue a house and then a blacksmith after that. Make sure these villas go to gold. Okay, now that we've lowered our count on just a little bit of adaptation here. Noticed I was going to run out of wood, took 2 off of food, moved them to stragglers for a second. Once you can guarantee that you'll have the food for what you need to get fletching. I know I do. I have 3 bills queued up right now, so if I cancel 2 of these, I have 165 in the bank food-wise, so I know I'll be able to sustain it. Then we can go down a little bit on food and grab wood as necessary to make sure we can afford the blacksmith and the house, and then a second house here in a minute, and then hopefully the mill here in a minute as well. And then the wood upgrade whenever we can. So wood's going to become a critical resource here. Again, I should probably have 1 to 2 of these down here, so I'm burning stragglers a little less quickly. So your goal is roughly around 11 minutes flat to have 4 archers. You want 4 archers in, you want fletching coming in, and you want those archers moving forward. We're now up to 7 on gold. And we want to fit in a mill here. I'm having to idle the range for just a second. If you do this a little bit more cleanly, you don't have to do that at all. It was only very momentary, but I did have to idle this build for a second because of it. I think ideally I should have grabbed maybe 10, 15 more wood here. But you do want to rush this mill as quickly as you can fit it in. I'm pretty sure you want to get it before the wood upgrade pretty much every time, because you are going to run out of food. And you need to make sure that this mill is sustaining build production before you run out of food here in a second. Notice we're at 0 food in the bank right now. This continues to stay very tight. 7 on gold, the minimal amount you need to sustain archer production. I think you could get away with 8 if you're in a real game and you think you've had some inefficiencies. This build here is being idle, it's a little bit sloppy. And we want to start getting farms down. This is the part where I'm not quite sure what the theoretical number should be for this build, because I do have to occasionally balance here between dropping farms and and making archers. I would say in an aggressive game, err on the side of making archers. If it seems like you can't make pressure, err on the side of making farms here to get up faster. That'll be very situation specific. You're going to want to get the wood upgrade before we're going to make a second lumber camp, so we're going to try to delay this as much as possible. 1 lumber camp isn't so bad. You'll notice we haven't really chopped that much because we don't have the wood upgrade. That's usually the problem with 1 lumber camp, is with the wood upgrade you chop through way too quickly, but when we don't have set upgrade, it's actually not so horrible. Again, this wasn't a perfect build order. I had some idle time there. I had this villager idle for a second who should have been walling or dropping a house. I wasn't aiming for perfection here as much as showing you kind of what this should look like. Yeah, I had to drop just so I got house first for the moment. But okay, at this point, things are fairly stable. The next thing we're going to want is to get double bit X here. And once we have double bit X, it opens up a little bit to depending on how the game's going. Couple ways this could go now. We could try to drop farms more aggressively, get armor, go up to Castle Age. We could, and you can avoid the second lumber camp entirely. Sometimes you have to get up super quickly, so you'll drop the market moves your way up. If you want a more stable eco into the next stage, because you think you're going to want to boom, a second lumber camp now helps a ton with that. So I think I'll drop it in a minute. Roughly, the goal for myself always is, in my head I'm thinking 14 farms is what you need to get up to Castle Age. More is great, but you want to hit pretty much that 14 benchmark of farms in an archer's build order before you're switching to do anything else. I'm also trying to keep up the walls over here and make this more realistic. In a real game, you actually don't need to make houses as quickly as this, so you should actually have 1 to 2 more farms than I do here, which does help smooth out the build. Makes up a little bit for the fact you're microing at the same time. Because as you lose, say, half of this army, that's 2 to 3 houses less you need, and that helps a lot with smoothing out the build. Fast forwarding a bit. So here we get up to 16 farms. You can do this as low as 14. I like 16 after the changes that were made to make crossbow bodkin a little bit more expensive. I think it just helps me personally to make sure I'll have the res for everything. But I think in theory 14 is probably still the right number here. We're idling for a second. never be afraid to idle, and then we click up. I think a perfect build here could be up maybe one villager sooner for sure, 2 villagers sooner maybe. So like maybe a perfect click time is 1930 with this. It depends heavily on walling and whether you get the upgrades or how your base looks, and whether the 4th deer, if I'd had the 4th deer, that would have been trivial to pull off a 1930. At least without micro. And then next stage as usual. Wood upgrade, bodkin, crossbow, wheelbarrow. The standard stuff. Second TC usually for sure. Third TC is not being played very often these days on flank. It's just too aggressive. I mean, usually it's either you have to decide whether you want to get ballistics first, so it's either university then TC, or it's TC then university. Third TC is usually something you want coming up around the same time you hit Imperial Age. Sorry, the same time you click up to Imperial Age, so I'm saying. Just to help flesh out the eco for the long term in case you need to transition to pikes or something on the flank. I think I may have been. I can't remember if I got the gold upgrade here. May have been a little bit delayed on that. I only have the +1 armor here. Reminder that you don't really need the +2 armor pretty much ever on your archers. You can delay +2 armor and definitely +4 armor until later on. That's only if you're. It's very situational. For the most part in a team game, you want to have your pocket in front of you. If it's more of a 3v3 setup, it's okay to get the ult earlier. This is inefficiencies from me, but whatever. I wasn't really focusing much on this part. So, you know, it's TC, then ballistics. And then we're going to add the 3rd TC here as we're preparing to click up. Siege Workshop. This is usually either going to... This could be rams, this could be bombard cannons. Usually it's going to be bombard cannon Treb if you need to push. It's going to, on your own, it's going to be rams if you can push with the pocket. Or bombard cannon. Bombard cannon's so nice as flank. And that's the click. After that, not much to say. You know, just Imperial Age stuff. I was flowing a bit too much gold here. I wasn't paying as much attention to the build at this point. So I had to drop the market. But, in any case, yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. I think this is pretty much as tight as you can make it. I believe with 4 deer you can in theory go 18 pop with the generic civ, but it's going to be so absurdly tight, you'll need to probably delay fletching for a minute. So you'd probably do something like 2 ranges, and then 2 to 3 farms, and then blacksmith, and then get fletching. Because otherwise you'll just run out of everything. With an eco civ though, so this was with Magyar. With an eco civ, 19 pop should be fairly smooth to pull off. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to playing set in the future. Take it easy, Angel.